You're living the dreams of a lot of people. I mean, you're a voice actor. You've got a lot of things, but right now, you got the Jellies on HBO Max, Adult Swim.
So I'm going up against celebrities. They get first pick, so it's very tough.
What you have to present in order for it to really come across effectively, you really got to put it together and add these effects, and the effect is your voice and what you can produce.
Yeah, especially I'm in a very small category, I guess you say, but deep baritone voice. So I'm going up against Darth Vader, James Earl Jones. I've literally competed against him. That's Darth Vader, another actor. Yeah, I mean, so and he's going to get any
Darth Vader.
Yeah, so he doesn't want to voice Darth Vader, or the black dude who does all the NBC. If you're watching the show on NBC, do the trailer for next week on the Blacklist. I go up against that guy a lot. He's going to get most auditions. He doesn't even have to audition usually, but when he does, I go up against him. So it's a very stacked category I'm going in. But sometimes I get it, so I'm lucky.
What do you do to maintain such a strong voice like that? What's the maintenance process like? Were you born with this? The Darth Vader voice. That's a strong. That's. What are you doing?
Well, I'm very lucky. A lot of it's genetics, to be honest with you, because my parents, my mother. If you spoke to my mom on the phone, you would have thought she was black. She had an incredibly thick, southern, somewhat of a deep voice. Accent. And then my dad was from Chicago, so the Midwest. He had a very deep, I guess you'd call it regular American voice. So the combination of those two voices, people ask me if I'm amplifying this or doing this voice on purpose. This is just how I talk. So a lot of it's just luck, but I don't drink. 52. I've never had a drink of alcohol in my life. Don't smoke. Never had cigarettes. So nothing harsh goes down my throat.
That's interesting. That's a very few people who can say that. Was that by choice? Was it something you saw growing up that said, you know what, I want no part in this?
Well, my mom bribed me. She basically said, if you don't touch alcohol till you're 18, I'll get you the car of your choice, within reason. It's not like I could ask for a Ferrari with suicide doors. She followed through and got me a BMW. And in the mid '80s, that was a big deal.
It's a big deal today.
Yeah, but like in the mid '80s, it was like 318i was like pretty special. So I guess after 18, I was like, why start now? It would be pretty stupid to start drinking, right?
That's it.
So, yeah, I mean, and I don't really like the taste of it, or the smell of alcohol, so I can't imagine what the taste is like. And I know you don't drink alcohol for the taste, you drink it for the buzz, but that's why I drink my energy drinks. So, and I hate cigarette smoke, I hate the smell, so I can't imagine what smoking a cigarette would be like. So, just, you don't have to live a completely pure life, but the less bad stuff you put down your throat, the better it's going to be for a long time. And I also think it's gotten deeper over the years as you get older, so that actually helps.
So when you go through times of struggle, what are you doing to, provide that sense of relief? Everybody sort of has to have some form of that, right? What's yours?
Well, I'm so used to rejection that it doesn't bother me anymore. I went through 13 years of stand-up comedy in Los Angeles with nothing. I mean, literally, I was in one movie with Rob Schneider in 2006, and it was just a very quick scene. A lot of people say it was the best scene of the movie, but I don't know about that. But other than that, I had nothing. So I have an incredibly thick skin, which you have to have, whether you're a comic, actor, improv actor. It's a mind-blowing business, and now with the voiceover, where the rejection rate is even higher, it doesn't bother me that much. Of course, you want every job, everything that I audition for say a Georgia State Lottery commercial where it's buy your Georgia State Lottery tickets now. The lottery's up to $2.5 million, or a bad guy in a cartoon. You realize that the odds are low. You go in with positive thoughts. I'm going to get this. No one has my voice, but you just have to plow through it. I read some self-help books. They help to a degree. So,
what's the go-to that book? What that you got? You got to have one.
I mean, I recently read a book by this doctor. His name's Jason Self. I don't get a cut of sales here, but it just it's called Relentless Solution Focus, and it just, the long story short of what the book's about, it basically says, when you're down, you didn't get a gig, and things are tough. In that moment, you have 60 seconds to change your thought process. So instead of saying, "Why didn't I get this?" say to yourself, "What can I do right now to help me get this tomorrow?" And it works. It sounds hokey, or like if you and I are both interviewers. When I reach out to celebrities, do the podcast, I probably get told no 80% of the time. They don't know who I am. They don't want to come to my house. And so when I get a no, like I recently got a no from an actor who was on Miami Vice. He was in one of my favorite episodes. And going into it, I thought, well, he's not asked to be interviewed a lot. Although he's a working actor, he's not the type of actor you say, "Hey, let's have him on the Tonight Show," or Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel. So I thought he'll say yes for sure, and he said no pretty fast. So I hung up the phone with him and immediately thought, what can I do tomorrow to get someone who's been on Miami Vice on the show? And that person said no too, but but you just, instead of focusing on what you didn't get, focus on what you can do to help you get that.
I was with you, and I feel like you could absolutely get somebody on that show who could talk about that show. Absolutely, even if you didn't get this guy, I think you were on something there. Not that moment, what you were getting from that book, but just that little block of, you really start to we start to get into these chambers of thoughts where you start to blame yourself, and you start to blame sort of these things that so you start to attach them to yourself. And with a lot of these things, with the interviewing, same here, I completely understand what you were saying. Sometimes you just have to put these things out there. I like that. I once heard that Mike Tyson, the way he earned a lot of his success with the boxing was that with his routines, with practicing, he would separate himself, or actually from his mentors, that they instilled this in him. It was you don't exist. It's just the objective at hand, right? And this has to do with the work that was being done. So that was really huge for me, just being like, you got to separate the emotion, especially with the acting, with the filmmaking. A lot of this stuff is like, you are the asset, and then you're sort of constantly getting the no's. That is completely part of the nature of the business. It's like, you have to create some sort of thought process early on. Otherwise, you start to change maybe something good that you had in the beginning. You started to, you can really get into these, you can really get tangled really quickly.
Yeah, and it also helps me, oddly, that I'm from Los Angeles. Very few people are. And so I'm, used to the high level of competition and everything. I do stand up voiceovers, the acting, whereas I think there are some people who come from another part of the country or Canada or the UK and they're the big fish in their pond, and then they come here and they get overwhelmed. They're like, oh, like if I was born in, say, Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is a pretty obscure Canadian province, with this voice, I'd be like, I'm going to book every job when I come to Los Angeles. Nobody has this voice. And I come here, and there's a lot of people with deep voices here. I'd be shocked, probably leave after a couple of years. So, I think when you're from here, you know that the numbers game is high, and some people it still affects, but with me, I get it. I'm in the number one entertainment capital city in the world. Everyone comes here to make it. There's people who are born here that are making it. So I get the high rejection rate. That's why it doesn't bother me as much as it would someone else who's not used to that.
With a lot of people, they create a bitterness with the rejection over time. And with you, I can see, and just with speaking with you, and I think our audience will see it. It's you have this. You're completely fine with it, and you've established this longevity. You stuck it out. You're not out here saying I didn't get this. You did this scene with Rob Schneider, and here you are down the line. Now you're on Adult Swim. HBO Max. You stuck around, and that's what it's about. Just roll with the punches. Do what you do.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just, of course, you have to be talented at whatever you do. Like, I have a lot of friends who've done stand-up for almost as long as me who aren't that funny, and so it's kind of like the fly trying to get out of the glass. It's never going to get out. But I think if you're genuinely talented in whatever you do, it really is just sticking with it. All it takes is for one person to see you that can help you. Of course, it took me 13 years to find that one person. But after that, I was ready, for the opportunities that I got, and I was lucky getting the cartoon how I got it. Person whose cartoon it is, Tyler, the creator. He saw me at the Comedy Store, and I had a good set, and I was ready. So part of it was just luck that he was at the Comedy Store that night.
That's awesome. And he's a genuine dude. When I worked at the newsstand on Fairfax, his store was right next door, and he was just so genuine dude. And that's awesome that he noticed that in you, because that's wicked sweet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very, of all the things I've accomplished, getting on that cartoon is probably my highest accomplishment, because I realize now there's voice actors who've been doing it for 20 years who've never been on Adult Swim. It's a hard network to get on. It's really the only cartoon network. Of course, you can get a cartoon on Fox or something, but Adult Swim for cartoons is like it's the place to go.
Absolutely.
So what does factor into it? What if he went to the Comedy Store the next night or the night before I was there? I wouldn't be on this show right now. So you can also make your own luck. Still work very hard at stand-up. So I think you can create your luck to a degree. And you just have to stick with it. You have to believe. I always tell people, and anyone listening, if I could just get one idea through your head, whether you're a guy or girl, whether you've been doing comedy or acting or whatever you do, modeling, 20 years or 2 months, you have to be delusional in this business to think you're going to make it, but your delusion has to be based in reality. And what I mean by that is, I have a very deep, booming voice, so it's not completely unbelievable to me to think I could make it voiceovers. it would be delusional for me to think I could play in the NBA at 52 because I can't jump that high. I'm not very good at basketball. So that would be irrational thinking. So you just have to be realistic, but unrealistic at the same time, if that makes any sense.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. You have to have that awareness of where you stand with what you're doing, but have that delusion that you can do it, and that laser focus has proven to be successful for lots of people, including yourself.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Laser focus. You have to focus in on a goal, and you have to then build smaller goals around that big goal. Like your goal is to be on Adult Swim as a voiceover actor, or a Netflix cartoon, or any big cartoon or animated movie. Those were just cartoons, voiceovers. That's the goal. And then you have to say to yourself, okay, well, what can I, like the book says, what can I do tomorrow? Or what can I do today to help me get the goal tomorrow? So you're an interviewer, so maybe the first step is buying a nice microphone to audition for. Getting a good home studio set up so when you get an audition, you don't sound like you're recording it through, your cell phone recorder, which I used to do in the early days of voiceover acting. I would literally, on my Android phone, I didn't even have an iPhone. I had a pretty janky Samsung, and it had a voice recorder on it. And I thought, oh, this is good enough. And then now I use a Neumann mic, which is state of the art. Like, it's microphone I have when I audition is something you'll find in any voiceover or music recording studio in the world. So, in my mind, I get an audition today for, say, the new Marvel Superman movie. I don't even know if Superman's a Marvel. I don't know. I'm not really involved in that world. I'm going to use this microphone to help me get it tomorrow. So, not to say that you have to buy a $1,250 mic, but maybe the first step is clearing out a space in your room so you can have a good area to audition in. And maybe the next day it's upgrade your computer to edit the audition. And the next day, baby steps all lead to that big goal.
Absolutely, absolutely. The baby steps, that incremental growth, and just that constant stuff. You went from the Android phone to a $1,250 microphone, and in many ways, for people who want to do this, the reality is you will have to buy that because that's the level of competition, the caliber you're going to be dealing with. You were just saying that the people you're going up against at these auditions, one of them is the guy who voiced over Darth Vader. Like, that's not some Joe Schmo. That's the only guy people imagine when they hear this voice, really.
Yeah, and I don't mean to scare people like, oh my God, I have to buy a $150 mic, or if you're a photographer, oh my God, I have to buy a $3,000 camera. But when you get to the level that I'm finally at after a billion years of doing this, you're going to be compared to everyone. So, the next audition I have is Joel Jones gets that audition. Billy Brown is most people don't know the name Billy Brown, but he's a black actor who does the Few the Proud the Marines commercial. He was the bad guy in Sons of Anarchy, and he has just amazing, deep, gravelly voice, almost like a black Clint Eastwood. He's going to get it. Rob Riggle's going to get it. They're all big celebrities. And, I have to have, my thought process is I have to have the best mic I can afford at this moment and go up against them because the odds are already stacked against me. I could have a $1 million home studio in my house and I'm still going up against those odds. So you just have to put yourself in the best position possible. even like I'm a paid regular at the Comedy Store, which is the #1 club in the country. And I put myself in a position to be past there because I wrote jokes every day. A lot of them were awful, but I wrote all those bad jokes to get to the good ones. And so by the time I was asked to audition, I was ready. Like all the little things I did, writing jokes at 3 in the morning, seeing a stupid commercial on TV, going to open mics for literally 13 years before I got the audition. But they all helped me. And that audition, I nailed it. Like every famous comic who was at the Comedy Store that night, there's a lot of them. They all came in to watch me because they knew my struggle. So they were all telling the booker, "Hey, pass Earl. He's been up here forever. Like please pass him. We're sick of seeing him up here." And, so I had a lot of pressure on me that night because the booker was being told by every big name comic. They all had Netflix specials, movie stars, TV people. Pass him. So I had to do well, or I was not going to get a second chance for a very long time.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Earl, but you were ready for that moment because you had been putting in the work and living like a comedian and you were a comedian. It's like some people go up once a week and then they do bad and then they go up again in 2 months and then they're telling people they've been doing it for 2 years. And you were living it. You were doing it. There was no faking that. You were doing it, whether it was good, whether it was bad. You put yourself in those positions to fail or succeed. And in reality, a lot of those moments feel like failure more than success, but down the line, it's all leading you to the success.
I can't even calculate how many times I bombed on stage in those early years, but I was a maniac. I was going up, I would say my first 3 or 4 years, I was going up 3 times a night, 7 nights a week. I was an animal. I didn't care where the gig was. I would drive to San Diego to do 10 minutes break. If I count how much money I lost doing comedy in probably the first 13 years, it's uncalculable. Probably $20,000, $30,000 I spent gas, food. It might be even more than that. But it didn't bother me. I was. Funny you mentioned that going up once a week, twice a week. There's a comic who. I won't name, but they put out a special and it was bad because they were famous from another field, so they didn't put in the work. So they would literally just go up once a week, if that, once every 2 weeks, a few times a month. And so they just weren't ready for an hour of TV comedy. Bill Burr didn't do his first special until 40. That's Bill Burr. He's best guy going right now. So Bill Burr's waiting till he's 40 to do a special. And it's not to say you have to wait 15 years before you do your first special, but that's why his specials are so good, because he's put in decades worth of work before he put it out there. So, but stand up specifically, it's we want it now. The industry, if someone's young, they're good looking, or they're appealing in some weird way that the networks want them now. Most of them aren't ready for that chance. Some are, but most aren't, and then they never hear from them again.
And you do see that with a lot of these, whether they were actors in a sitcom, maybe they were funny with a group structure, but then they were popular, right? And then a studio says, "Hey, let's offer them. Go ahead, let's give him an hour. He's great. We love him in that show." And you really see that take place in it. So they're not. It's sort of like, you could probably speak on this better than I, but it's a little bit of a misunderstanding, disrespect of what it takes to do the stand-up comedy routine for a whole hour.
Yeah, it's to have an hour of TV comedy and have it be good, like Anthony Jeselnik good, it takes years of brutally hard work. probably the best example, and I might lose some of your audience because it's an 80s reference, but, there were, in the late 80s, a rush to find the next big action star. You've got Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme, Steven Seagal. So there was this guy named Jeff Speakman who was a master of karate, and he was kind of a good-looking guy.
Can you say his name again, because you cut off?
Yeah, his name was Jeff Speakman, and he was a real-life karate instructor. He was very good-looking. So they gave him a lead in a movie called The Perfect Weapon, which is one of my guilty pleasure movies to watch because it's so bad it's good. And you never really heard from him again because it was such a bad movie that I'm sure most casting directors were like, "You can't use this guy; he's awful." There's other, there's one UFC fighter currently fighting. His name is Sage Northcutt, and from a visual perspective, he's maybe the most perfect-looking human ever. He's just got this, looks like a very young Dolph Lundgren, like Rocky IV Dolph Lundgren. And the UFC really pushed him because he's a very good-looking guy. He's very good at karate, but he wasn't ready. And he's been harmed ever since because he lost a few fights, and then the allure of him being this ass kicker was taken because he lost pretty badly, and so now he's kind of a journey, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So that's kind of goes back into the comedy world. I've had friends of mine who, either they looked really young, and so they had a cute image, and they got on late night TV, like a Craig Ferguson spot or something like that, and they bombed, and that was it, one and done. So it's good to have big goals, but you got to be ready for them because if you stay in the game long enough, you will get the opportunity. Like, me, I was 13 years in, so I was ready. But it's the oldest saying in the world, but be careful for what you wish for, because one day you might get it, and you better be ready when you do.
Well said, Earl. Well said. Well, Earl, I really appreciate you for being on the show. I think our audience got to know you and to get a lot of this great wisdom from you, and I'm truly grateful for you jumping on today.
Oh, thank you. Just to those of you listening, going, God, for someone we've never heard of, this guy's pretty opinionated. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying in my journey, these are the experiences that led me to believe how I believe today. So you might disagree with some things I said. You got to find your own path. My path might not be your path, and vice versa. I've had friends of mine who've done comedy for 2 or 3 years and made it. But making it's different for everyone. I think ever since Jim Carrey made $20 million doing Cable Guy, that's most comics' version of making it. But don't compare yourself to other people. If I can say one last thing, because we all have different levels of what making it means. Some people, I've made it. I got a younger comic tell me that the other night at the Comedy Store. They're like, "Dude, you've made it." And like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Well, you're on Adult Swim. You have a successful podcast. You've been on Showtime. You're on Dying Up Here. You're like one of the stars, or whatever you want to call it, a roast battle. You're paid regular at the Comedy Store." And I was like, "Wow, I think I have made it." But to me, someone like, say, Joe Rogan has made it. Like, number one podcast in the world, number one comic in the world. So to me, that's making it. To you, making it might mean something else. So just work hard, stay in the game, be delusional, but not too delusional, and you'll get there. I really believe that. If you have the talent, you will get to whatever goal you're trying to reach.
All right. All right, Earl. How can our audience find you on social media?
It's very easy. I'm the same on every form of social media. Just at Earl Skakel. That's EARLSKAKEL. And if you like podcasts, I have the Inappropriate Earl podcast, which is on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. And if you're in LA, come to the Comedy Store. I'm there a few times a week if I'm not out of town touring. And I post my better shows if I have an out of town show or whatnot on Instagram. So that's probably the best way to reach out to me. If you want tickets, I'll take care of it, or I'll do my best to take care of it. Sometimes you got to pay. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, I get back to everybody, because I know when I reach out to someone I'm a fan of, and they don't reach out, they don't get back to me, my feelings get hurt a little bit. So, like when I reached out to the guitar player of the Killers and said, "Hey, I'm a big fan. I really like you in the band the best when you're in them." Because sometimes he takes vacations from the band, and he actually got back to me and said, "Thank you very much. I'm a fan of yours, oddly enough." So I get back to everyone.
Very nice. Very nice, Earl. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you, man. I hope to meet you one day in person. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Have a good one.